Hello everyone and welcome back to another deck guide, this time featuring the newly supported Phantom Knights as well as some 3-axis mainstays like Goblins and Materia Actors. Our goal here is to slap two level 3 bodies together over and over again, and the new Phantom Knight support vastly empowers our end board and ends up taking center stage here. So if you like the number 3 as much as me, then let's get started. First up, I want to assuage possible naysayers. Yes, there's a lot of one-ofs here, but many of them function as starters, extenders, or good discard fodder, so don't worry, the deck is actually quite consistent with 19 one-card starters. That's why we can run 46 cards to see some of those one-ofs less often. With that out of the way, let's talk Phantom Knights. These guys are an anime archetype based primarily on making level 3 Xyz, but they also have ways to rank up into 4s and even 5s. They also all banish from grave for some effect. Starting with Decayed Cloak here, who can special from hand by revealing another Phantom Knights card, then adds a monster and can banish from grave to make an Xyz monster count as having a level for the turn, so you can use it to make a different Xyz. That isn't a crucial effect, but it comes up, and this is a starter even if you have to just normal summon it, but obviously it's better if you can reveal something to special it. Solorette is our other new monster, and can special out if you have no monsters on field, then sets a spell trap and can banish from grave to raise 2 monsters level by 1 for the turn to let you make a rank 4. Same thing, this is a starter even if you have to normal summon it, but you would rather special it as your first play. Our last starter in Archetype is an old one, it's Torn Scales, which is worse than the other two, but it still gets the job done. It lets you discard a card to Foolish a Knight, and if it's in grave and another knight gets banished from grave, you can reborn the Scales to get an extra body. Then we have a quintessential extender with Silent Boots, who can special out if you have a knight on board. Then once you've used it as material, you can banish it from grave to search a spell trap. Cloak is here solely to Foolish off scale since its on-board effect is nothing, but it can banish from grave to search any The Phantom Knights card. We'll talk about that "the" when we get to the sideboard. For spells, we have just 2 rank up magics since this is more of a trap-based archetype, but our new Requiem is a hell of a card. It's also hard to understand, but I'll do my best to explain. First, you target a knight or an Xyz dragon in grave or banishment and summon it. Then, completely disjointed from the summon, you can rank up a dark Xyz you control into a Phantom Knights or Xyz dragon that is 1 rank higher. So this lets you summon an Xyz, then immediately use it, or just summon back a level 3 body, then use something that you already had on board. And it's really nice for letting you reset grave effects to use again next turn. For example, you can banish Boots to search the rank up, then use it to summon the Boots back to put it back in the grave. Our other Rum isn't as good, but it's necessary for the combos. Rank up Magic Force is a quick play that lets you banish any number of dark monsters from grave, then rank up a dark Xyz you control by however many you banished. This is the other way we make a rank 4 since we won't always be able to use Solorette to do so. For our traps, we have 3 Umbrage Veils, which I know a 3 of trap looks weird, but it's actually an extender in disguise, since you can activate it the turn it was set as long as you have a knight on board or in grave, and it just summons out as a level 3 body. You can also banish it from grave to quick Xyz a dark monster, which sounds great, but the pool of dark 3s is pretty awful, so it doesn't actually represent disruption. You set this off a Solorette, which summons and makes a rank 3 to get you off to the races, but seeing it alone ain't bad either, and we want a good number of Knights cards so that we have something to reveal for Cloak. Last up is Raider's Unbreakable Mind, which is a continuous trap that always counts as the Phantom Knights card, and lets you pop a card if you Xyz summon using a dark Xyz on field, and if it's face up and gets destroyed, you can set a rank up magic from deck or grave. This is not always part of the end board, but is an option to grab in case you open something you would normally search, like an Umbrage Veil. The pop doesn't always come up, and it doesn't always get popped, but it's useful enough to justify as an option. The best thing it does is bait an MST to protect your other face down back row, then you can flip it up in response, it gets popped, and you can recycle a rum. Then we have our various sub-engines. Goblins makes level 3 bodies, like a lot of them, starting with Doug, who can be a starter but is much better as an extender. That's because he can special by detaching an Exy's material from anywhere on the field. Then on summon he adds a Goblin Biker spell trap. Normal summoning Doug is combo in a pinch, but we lose some disruptions if we have to go that route, so you really don't want to do that, you want to save him to extend. Clatter reborns a goblin on summon and can detach a material on the opponent's turn to summon itself out, which triggers the reborn. It's just a necessary combo piece. Gone Wild is also a combo piece, but also a starter, since you can normal summon this level 6 without tributing if you have no monsters or only goblins, then on summon it E-tellies out a low level goblin like say Doug. Lastly, if sent to grave, it can attach an opponent's card to a Goblin Xyz you control to help break a board or use on their turn as disruption. For spells, we're willing to pay for 3 breakouts because it can tribute any monster to special a goblin from deck, which is necessary for the normal goblin combos, but also turns any stray body on board into full combo, and lets you dodge targeted interaction since it's a quick play. It can also banish from grave to drop the opponent's attack in damage step for easy OTKs, which is pretty tight. Grand Bash is a combo piece that can act as an extender if opened. It gives all goblins a bunch of attack, but more importantly gives you an extra normal summon of a goblin and lets you modulate levels. This is how you turn Gone Wild into a level 3 to use it as material, and the extra normal and attack are icing on the cake that sometimes come up. We're on 1 goblin trap, Grand Pileup lets you Xyz summon a goblin over any other Xyz on the field, and attach this to it as extra material. Then you can banish this from grave to attach any card in either grave to a goblin Xyz you control. This is our extra search off Doug in case we open Breakout and we don't need Bash that game, and it's also great to open as extra back row disruptions or just to use it as a discard since it has a graveyard effect. We're on the full armored Xyz package, so we need the titular trap in main. This lets you quick Xyz summon, but more importantly banishes from grave to equip an Xyz on field or in grave to another Xyz on field. That equip gives its attack to the equipped monster and can protect it from destruction by sacrificing itself. Then we have a small but integral Materiactor package. This is how we convert any 2 level 3s into 2 level 3 dark monsters, which is necessary to bridge into Phantom Knights. We do that with Gigadra, who is a starter in his own right and can discard a card to summon a level 3 normal monster from deck, or if you discarded a normal monster, you can summon any Materiactor monster instead. That lets you summon out my goat. Dark King of the Abyss is a level 3 dark body. Or even better, if you open the king, you can discard him to summon Zeptwing instead, who searches a Materiactor card on summon, then can reborn the king if you have him in grave. And Zeptwing's an extender on its own, because it can just summon out if you have a Materiactor on board. The search off of Zeptwing is always critical, which is an Omni-Negate counter trap that requires you to have a Materiactor Xyz with material on board. The whole idea here is that if you don't open the Phantom Knights starters, you can summon Gigadra to bridge into it, or if you do open a Knight, you can summon Zeptwing and get an Omni instead. If you open the Dark King, you can even get to all of the above by pitching it for Gigadra to summon the Zep, to add critical, to summon back the King. Lastly, we have a small-ish Radiant Typhoon package to use as extra starters and help break a board since we don't have a ton of points or deck space to spare. These all special summon from hand if the opponent has no back row, so if you're going first, or if you have an MST in grave. Swen searches a spell on summon, which is Chant, which searches a monster, which is Eldom, which searches a monster, which is Megala, which is just a free body. If you don't need the bodies or board breaking is more important, they can all also search MST instead when needed. Of course, we have 3 MSTs to make the engine work and help us break a board, and 3 Ascendances, which can act as 3 more MSTs to make sure we see one when we're going second, or can reborn a Typhoon monster if you want to use it as extension instead. I have lots to talk about on the side for this one. We have 4 spare points you can use for Cyclones like I have here, or a playset of Dark Holes. Personally, right now, the new Angelici deck is shaping up to be an incredibly toxic addition to the Genesys metagame, and you basically lose to it on the spot if you don't see a Cyclone, so I'm opting for those, and honestly probably putting them in main and keeping the Ascendances in the side instead. Non-engine is always a meta call though, so play what you think you'll need. You could expand the Goblin engine, and each new name you put in gives you more options and a higher ceiling, but also more one-of possible bricks. Boom and Mean are good cards, but we're not ending on Gabonga, which makes Boom Mock great, and we aren't playing Tour Guide, which makes Mean Merciless great, so I don't think we need either of these guys. Similarly with the Phantom Knights, you could play Stained Greaves as an extra extender, but in testing it literally never once came up, so I ended up taking him out. Then we have to talk about the dreaded word, the. See, Phantom Knights has a number of cards that are Phantom Knights archetypal cards, while most of them are the Phantom Knights archetypal cards. That matters for a few reasons. One, Silent Boots can search cards without the, but Ancient Cloak can't. Decayed Cloak has to reveal a the Phantom Knights card to special, and Solorette can only set a the Phantom Knights card. That means that something like Fogblade, which is a good back row disruption that I would love to play as a one-of in Search, is only accessible off of banishing the boots, which you often need to do as part of the combo. This is why I'm playing the Raider's Mind instead, because it's the best option that counts as a the Phantom Knights card. There are a couple other options that are maybe kind of playable. These are Wrong Magnet Ring, which negates an attack and summons out, then as a monster it can send itself and another Phantom Knights card to grave to draw 2 as a quick effect. The problem is summoning it in the first place, especially when the opponent knows you have it, but negate attack is something at least. The other option, which I think is a better one, is Rank Up Magic Launch, which is a quick play that targets a Dark Xyz you control with no material and ranks it up by 1 into any Dark Xyz. It doesn't have to be a Phantom Knights or an Xyz Dragon that it turns into, so you can make something like Carmyle, which is an Omni Negate with upside. The biggest problem here is the extra deck space. It's so incredibly tight already. The closest to removable card in here is a Shuriken, and that should tell you something since the card is crazy good. If you wanted to opt out of the full armored package and get a little more space, I would definitely recommend putting this in over the Raider's Mind. Just remember that Rum is 1 point, which does cost you a Cyclone or Dark Hole in the side, which isn't nothing. Same thing with good 3-axis staples like Gram Pulse and Alucard. I'd love to play one or both, but we just can't swing the room. Finally, we're on to the extra deck itself. Gigaboros is a necessary evil. There was a lot of times in testing where I needed to make a rank 3 Dark Xyz that could detach a material under any circumstances, and this is the only one that fit the bill. That's because we need to rank up a Dark with Force, but sometimes we need to get Boots in the grave to search the Force. That's why Gigaboros is here, but sometimes I guess you can leave it on board to get follow-up and use Grand Pile-Up to rank it up. More integral to the deck is Exegard, who can be made with any 2/3s and detach a material to summon or add a Materiactor from deck. That makes any 2/3s into the Gigadra, who summons King, which is then 2 Dark 3s, so we can go into the new Malevolent Scythe, which can detach a material to summon a Phantom Knights from deck to start that engine. Then crucially, when you summon an Xyz Dragon while he's on board, you can search a rank up magic. This is almost always how we get Requiem. Gabonga gets you to Goblins by searching a monster on summon, and if a material is detached from anywhere, he can suck up an opponent's monster. This helps break boards and can be used as disruption if you reborn him off of Clatter. Shamanite is a new TCG exclusive that is actually just so crazy good for the Knights. On summon, or if a trap gets banished, you can attach a banished trap to it. Then you can detach any number of materials to summon a Dark from grave or banishment with level equal to the number of materials you detached. Basically, you banish Veil to summon him, to attach the Veil, to have 3 materials to summon a banished monster, which puts both the Veil and that banished monster back in the graveyard to use again later, and you get a Dark Xyz with no materials along the way for use for various things. Torpedo detaches materials to draw a card and gives effects if you equip it with full armored. A Shuriken is big, attacks 3 times, and has a monster negate and destroy. Normally I make him if I open the Radiant Typhoon starter and another starter, since Typhoon gives you 3 bodies without a normal summon, and that just insulates you against hand traps. Dark Rebellion is the only rank 4 we're making. Its on-field effect doesn't matter because it's just here to be ranked up into one of its 2 incredibly powerful evolved forms. I want to preface Dark Requiem by reminding you that this is an old card. This is not new. It has no effects unless it has exactly OG Dark Rebellion as material. But if it does, then it can detach a material to steal an opponent's monster's attack, zeroing them out and gaining it all for itself. That's cool and fine and all, but where this card really shines is going first, because it can detach a material to negate and destroy a monster effect, then reborn any Xyz from your grave. This effect is not once per turn. This card is absolutely bonkers, but it was never really feasible to make it with Dark Rebellion, so it never got used. Now the Knights are custom built to put this card on field with 2, 3, or even 4 materials for 4 negate, destroy, and reborns. And that's not even the only insane Xyz dragon in the deck. Arc Rebellion is an OTK factory. You make him going second instead of Requiem since he can't be destroyed and can detach a material to gain the attack of all other monsters on the field and negate them permanently, and becomes the only monster that can attack this turn. That means once you've chewed through the opponent's disruptions, they're stuck staring down a 13,000 attack beater with a negated field, and if for some reason the kill shot fails, you still search a bunch of back row and graveyard effects along the way. Then we've got Crazy Beast, which is what you make off of Pile Up and can eat a spell trap once per turn, protects your monsters by detaching materials a la Dengirsu, and can reborn itself once per duel. Dragon Gate can be slapped over any rank 3 Xyz and can kind of pull an OTK out of nowhere since it can detach materials to gain attack and drop the opponent's attack, and it can attack each monster once. The cool thing is that we can make it with a monster and a trap thanks to Veil for a 4,000 attack swing, and then combo it with Breakout's Grave effect if we need even more than that. Then we have the full armored guys. Fortress slaps over a rank 3, then detaches to search the trap itself, then ranks up into Lancer, who gets big and eats a card when you use the trap to equip something. Lastly, Zexal is still a steal at 5 points, and lets us clear up our board by using 2 Xyz monsters, then becomes giant and the only thing on board the opponent can target. It also has a non-targeting mind control and becomes indestructible for turn when it uses it. Unfortunately, Omega doesn't let me do actual games on launch week, so we're just going to go more in depth on combos than normal to help you understand how the deck works, so let's get to it. Alright, first for combos, we're going to do Decayed Cloak, just a normal summon of it, with any card to discard. So we're going to normal summon the Cloak, and that's going to let us get Silent Boots, who we can summon out, which gives us a 3, so we can make Malevolent Scythe to summon out Torn Scales. Torn Scales can then pitch a card to Foolish the Ancient Cloak, and then we can banish the Ancient Cloak to get Umbrage Veil as an extra extender. Summon that out, then go into Gabongo, which lets us get Dug. Notably, every time you're doing a combo with this deck, you want to remove the extra material off of Scythe if you don't need any materials from under the Gabonga. That's because this makes it a 0 material dark, which comes up sometimes. Anyways, so we detach the material from Scythe, summon out Dug. Dug is going to search Breakout, which we can use to tribute the Gabonga, to summon out Clatter, to summon back the Gabonga. But now all of its materials are engraved, and we have another level 3 body, so we can rank those 2 into Exegard. Exegard can detach the Clatter to summon out Zeptwing. Zeptwing can add Critical, and then because we haven't used the Silent Boots yet, we can banish it to add Rank Up Magic Force, which triggers the Torn Scales we summoned earlier in the combo to summon itself back. Then we can use Zeptwing and the Torn Scales to rank up into Shamanite using Umbrage Veil's Banish effect, which puts it in the Banish zone so that when Shamanite comes out, it can attach the Umbrage Veil. That gives it 3 materials to detach everything to summon back Ancient Cloak so that we have it for next turn, but now we can use the Rank Up Magic Force to turn the Shamanite into Dark Rebellion. Note that depending on the situation, if you want to save resources, you can just use Rank Up Magic Force on the Shamanite with 3 materials into Dark Rebellion, which gives you a 5 material Dark Requiem, which is pretty nasty. But here, I don't want to do that with the limited resources we have. But ranking it up into Rebellion triggers the Scythe, which goes and searches the Requiem. Then we can use Scythe and Gabanga because they've both done their jobs to go into Zexal, which gives us a space to activate Requiem to summon back the Boots, so we have even more follow-up for next turn, and then turn the Dark Rebellion into Dark Requiem. Then we can use our 2 level 3 bodies to make Torpedo, detach 2 materials to draw a card, rank it up into Fortress, detach a material to search the Full Armored, then we set everything. So the reason that we don't just make Dark Knight Lancer is because we need to have a way to use the Full Armored XZs. So on the opponent's turn, we're just going to use the Full Armored XZs to rank up Fortress into Dark Knight Lancer. This also insulates our board by layering it against something like a Dark Ruler. If the opponent rips Dark Ruler off the start, then we can still rank up the Fortress into the Dark Knight Lancer, which is then not negated, and we still have disruptions off of that. Same thing, the critical layers our board because we can negate even if the Exiguard is negated just by detaching the material from it. So, very good layered board. The Full Armored XZs turns the Fortress into Dark Knight Lancer, which then is a suck. We have critical for an Omni Negate for 1 board breaker. We've got 2 Negate Destroy Reborns. We've got the Zexal protecting everything from targeting. It can steal a body. It's obviously giant at 3,000 or 7,000 attack. Then if our board starts to get broken and we have space, we can detach a material to summon back the Clattersploder, and we can detach the Gabanga either for Clattersploder or for the Zexal's own effect, so that we can bring the Gabanga back off of the Clatter so that the next time we detach a material, or the opponent detaches a material, we can use Gabanga to suck something. So we've got graveyard disruptions that we can't even use unless we start to lose monsters, on top of just like 7, 8 things on the field right now. And then for next turn, we reset both Ancient Cloak and Silent Boots, so we can banish those to get follow-up. It's a super good layered board. Oh, also the Torn Scales is more follow-up. There's a lot of follow-up in here is all I'm saying. A lot of follow-up, a lot of disruptions, and it's pretty consistent because we have a lot of starters and extenders. Cool, cool. I also want to show you Solorette really quick, just because the combo does look a good bit different with this as a starter. You can special summon out the Solorette, which lets you set Umbrage Veil so that you have 2 level 3s, and you can use both of those to go into Malevolent Scythe, detach the Solorette to summon out Decayed Cloak, who can search Torn Scales because we didn't need to normal summon the Solorette, who can do effectively the same combo from here, but we don't need the rank up magic because Solorette's engraved, so we can banish it to make the Torn Scales and the Cloak level 4 go into Dark Rebellion early, so that we can get the Dark Requiem early, use that, summon back the Cloak so we get extra materials next turn. Then we have Requiem with 3 materials from the very beginning of our turn to insulate our combos. So Solorette is like a better starter just because we get to insulate our combos more easily and early in the combo. Then we can go into Gabanga, add Doug, use Doug again. Here, I detach the Torn Scales from the Dark Requiem. I'm doing that because otherwise I can't do full combo with 1 card, but do not do that if you have any extension. If you have literally 1 body, you don't want to do that. You want to detach from the Malevolent Scythe instead. But to make this work out, I have to detach the Scales, so that we can add the Grand Breakout, tribute Gabanga, summon Clatter, Clatter summons Gabanga, pretty standard. We can then overlay Scythe, who already did its job, and the Gabanga into Zexal, use our 2 bodies to go into Exegard, summon out Zeptwing, Zeptwing adds critical, then we can banish the boots from the grave to go get Raider's Unbreakable Mind, which triggers Scale to summon out. If we didn't detach the Scale, then we could have summoned the Gigadra instead to make an extra body, but then we don't get critical, and I highly value critical because it is our big way to stop a board breaker. It just it stops evenly, stops Dark Hole, and there's not a great way in the deck to otherwise do that. So I prioritize critical here. And then, because we detach the Torn Scales, we summon that. We still get to go into Torpedo to do the full armored thing, but we also just have Raider's Unbreakable Mind here, which is fine. So yeah, a little bit different combo there, but not too much, and you get protection early. And for our last combo, we're going to do the Radiant Typhoon engine. Note that the engine doesn't change if you open Swen or Eldum. It does change if you open Chant, because you only get 2 bodies out of that, but 2 bodies is enough to do the thing anyways. So we're going to special summon out the Swen, who's going to go get us Chant. We can activate Chant to go get Eldum, summon out the Eldum to go get Megala. This is all special summons, so you don't have to worry because we have our normal summon for later. We can go into Exegard, detach to summon out Gigadra, to summon out Dark King, and now we are bridged into the Phantom Knights. Unfortunately, this is what I mean. You don't get critical if you don't start with a Phantom Knights because you have to summon 2 Darks, and there's not a great other way to summon 2 level 3 Darks consistently. But we go into Scythe, detach a material to summon out Cloak. Cloak is going to trigger to add us the Solarette because we haven't normal summoned yet. So we can normal summon the Solarette, set Umbrage Veil as extra material, summon out Megala to go into Gabanga. Gabanga adds Doug, and here I'm going to use Doug to detach the material from Malevolent Scythe. Again, it comes up, you want it with 0 materials. Use the Doug to add Grand Pileup, because we have so many materials we don't need to do Breakout here, surprisingly. And that means that we're not going to end with Clattersploder, but Clattersploder doesn't always come up anyways in this deck because our board is very cloggy. But I just grabbed Pile Up as an extra disruption. Then we can go Gabanga plus the expended Exegard, because we don't have critical, we don't need to keep the Exegard on field. We can use its body to go into Zexal early. Then we can activate Umbrage Veil, which puts 2 level 3 Darks on field, which we can banish the Solarette from earlier, to level those up into 4, to go into Rebellion, to go search Requiem, to summon a body, to go into Requiem with 3 materials. Then we can use our expended Scythe. This is one of the big reasons you want it with 0 materials, because you can use Scythe to go into Fortress, but Fortress has to have no materials to be ranked up into Lancer. So you want to make Fortress with something with 0 materials always. But we can do that here, slap it over Scythe, detach the Scythe to add the full armored. Then we can use our other 2 materials for... There's not a good option, if I'm being completely honest. You can go Torpedo just to draw a card, but what I do here is I instead go for Gigaboros, because that lets us detach the Solarette to add the Zeptwing from our deck so that we have 1 less mediocre card to worry about. Then on the opponent's turn, Gigaboros can add a material back to hand, so we can add the Doug back as follow-up, then use its body to Grand Pile Up, rank it up into the Crazy Beast. It's fine. We needed something to do, and there is a limited pool of good rank 3s, so we just go Gigaboros for follow-up and a body to rank up. But that's it for this one. We set the 2, and then we pass. And then lastly, here's an example game. It is up against a bot, so don't expect it to be crazy, but I just want to show you what the combos look like in motion and what our actual goal is. So we start with the Swen, obviously, because we have Torn Scales in hand, which is another starter that just takes our normal summon, so we can put 3 bodies on field early to go into a Shuriken to insulate us against any hand traps. Then we can go Torn Scales, discard the Pile-Up because it has a graveyard effect, so we don't mind putting it there anyways, to send the Cloak to do just the normal Torn Scales combo from this point. Except we have Requiem in hand, so we can go Cloak instead, because we don't have our normal summon, but we can special it out by revealing the Requiem. That allows us to get even more extra extension. Everything in hand matters. Then we can go Gabonga, detach a material from Scythe. Again, you want Scythe with 0 materials whenever you can. Get out the Clatter, summon out Gabonga, overlay for Torpedo, draw an extra card just because we have an extra body. We make the Malevolent Scythe able to be used as material, not to actually use it as material, but because it banishes the cloak, which triggers Torn Scales, to then just summon back so that we have 2 level 3 bodies on field with Solaret and Grave. That means Solaret can make those level 4, do the normal combo to get into Rebellion. Then because we did have to do that for Scythe earlier, and we haven't gone through the Materiactors at all, we might as well use it as material to go into Materiactors to get critical. I don't summon the Zeptwing just because there's nothing we can do with it here, so I just get the critical itself, set a bunch of stuff, call it a day. This is 750 points of interaction, give or take. We have 1 way to deal with a board breaker, and 4 monster negates, the steal. The whole point of setting Force is that it lets you rank up into Arc Rebellion if you detach the Dark Rebellion, then summon it back during the opponent's turn. Obviously that doesn't matter much because Arc Rebellion doesn't do anything on summon, but it gives you a big indestructible body if you need that, like if the opponent clears your board or whatever. Opponent just starts trying to play. I don't bother to rip anything because nothing is a threat. They get to Nightmare Mermaid, and I'm like, well, I can cut you off a full combo probably. So this is the first negate I choose to do. Stops that, and they're forced to set and leave. And then we just like can very easily get to lethal from there. But you can see I just banish these 2 as follow-up. For example, you can get more bodies, keep comboing, do more stuff just by having those guys in the graveyard going into turn 3. Go to battle, we have 1,000,000 points of damage, so we can just kill the opponent. So that's generally what you're trying to do. Sometimes you won't touch every engine because you just like have certain extensions, certain pieces, you don't need certain other pieces, but generally that's what a game looks like. And we're back with closing thoughts on Goblin Knights. There's not a ton to say because I'm going to be honest, I haven't really tried the deck against actual people. That said, I play a lot of 3-Axis in Genesys. I know generally how 3-Axis works. I like it a lot. It is a good competitive deck. And this is just adding a new, possibly even more competitive engine into the mix that brings our end board from like 2 Zexals and critical, which, don't get me wrong, is a pretty solid end board, into something that can actually interact and stop the opponent rather than just kind of playing its best stun impression. So yeah, I don't know if this makes it the most competitive thing in the world. I don't know if this is the most competitive build of Phantom Knights. It might be, honestly, because all of the deck lists I've seen for the new Phantom Knights stuff from the OCG is just like pure Phantom Knights, and pure Phantom Knights has 9 1-card starters, which is like, meh. You play Tour Guide, I guess, that gives you 12. And I don't know, the end board of that deck is basically like Dark Requiem plus the full armored package. And don't get me wrong, Dark Requiem will solo a lot of games just by negating 3 or 4 monsters and destroying them. But like, I don't know, I want a little bit more oomph, a little bit more extension, a little bit more board breaking, and this deck works out. It does the thing. So that'll be it for this one, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.